Hey YouTubians, how you guys doing? Hope everybody's doing good. So we're gonna get into some filing today. I want to start by saying I consider myself an expert by no means. Everything that I've learned about filing chain, I learned from Buck and Billy Ray Smith, Harvey, the Iron Horse, and the Tin Man. My very first learning experience with filing chain, we got a wood stove. My wife bought me a big box store pulling, and of course it didn't take very long for that thing to barely even start making dust. So I need to learn how to file it, right? What better place than YouTube? And as luck had it, Buckin's video was the first one that popped up for me, and I'm glad that it did. There's a lot of guys out there that do things differently, and you know, I'm not in a position to bag on anybody or put down anybody's methods, but I will tell you that what I've learned from these three gents has really worked for me, and I believe it. So instead of trying to come off like the expert, I want to share my experience with you. I'm still learning. Every time I pick up a saw, every time I pick up a file, I'm learning new things all the time. So I wanted to give it to you from the perspective of somebody who has not been cutting or filing for 25 years or so. I highly recommend you stop over and see Buck and Billy Ray Smith. I highly doubt you're not aware of that channel if you're here watching this, but if you aren't, go check him out. The man is a master at filing, and so is the Iron Horse, for that matter. They've got different types of wood that they're dealing with, so their methods vary slightly. So I'll show you what I do with mine. First, we'll go over tools here on the hood of the old Yoda. This right here, for the chain that I'm filing, it's a 3/8 pitch. So what you'll read on the box is they will recommend a 3/16 file. Through Buckin's channel, I have learned that a 7/32 works best for me. I'll explain more here in a bit. In the kit that comes along with the file and the handle, they'll sell you a guide. It's a flat metal piece that your round file clamps into and controls the depth that your round file sits into your cutter. I wish that I had one to show you, but I threw it in the garbage a long time ago, and I don't have one laying around that I could find. So when you buy a kit, you probably know what I'm talking about. If not, this is all you need to file chain, your cutters at least. Then there's this guy. This right here is incredibly important, and somehow it's become magnetized, so that's cool. This is a raker gauge. This controls how deep each of your cutters will bite into the wood individually. And we'll get into what works for me. What the heck is that? Well, some of the other tools that I'm dealing with, these guys right here, right? It's pretty obvious that I've got some uniqueness. This is the little kids at my son's jiu-jitsu call it weird. What's going on with your eyes? You know what? That's okay. They are weird. I was born with a laundry list of eye problems, so and you can see I'm working trying to get a good focus here. So you can see that my eyes don't quite track right. The biggest problem that I have with my vision is optic nerve hypoplasia. Fancy term for a normal optic nerve, say it's the size of my thumbnail. When I was born, mine was about that size. So eyes, like any other lens out there, basically gather light, right? So I'm guessing this is how I was born, so I don't know any different. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for me to deal little tiny parts like this right here. But what are you going to do? You're going to deal with it, right? Power saws are awesome. So am I going to sit it out and not run it because it's difficult for me to do some things? Nah. And I don't consider what I have to be a disability by any stretch. When I wake up every morning, I feel no pain. Well, other than I'm getting a little bit older, but that's not related. As far as things to be born with that might cause you some hindrance, what I've got going on is no big deal. You just find ways to work around it. So this is what I use right here. I find that when I'm working out in natural sunlight, by far the best option for doing this for me. That's when I see the best. If I happen to have to be in the shop, this dude right here with the light, I don't even know. Yeah, you can see it. So it's an LED. It's not actually flashing. I think the frame rate of my camera makes it look like it's flashing, but it's not. That would make it kind of difficult. Anyway, light and magnification. That goes a long way for me. So I don't want to yak at you too long before we get into this. All right, so of course, as soon as I get done telling you that natural sunlight is by far the best option for me to be filing, life happened. So now it's dark and I'm in the shop. So I'm using the best of what I got here. This light does a pretty good job. Let's see if I can do this without blinding you guys. This thing angles down pretty good. I keep hitting the button, so I angle it down as far as I can so that it points at my work. Get her on here, and I'll see if I can give you guys the kind of view that I get through these here goggles. Let's see if it works. All right, so there's the chain. This is going to be tricky. Trying to get this thing to I don't think it's going to work. All right, let's see here. Oh yeah. We're getting little glimpses of it here. I think my camera's freaking out. So that's pretty much what I look at, and that I'm not going to turn the light on because I think that's going to freak some things out. You'll notice here, and forgive the shop, it's a wreck at this point. Different story. So this is how I angle my saw. Being the blind guy that I am, my vise allows me to angle it up. So as you see me here, you can see my bar. Fat guys don't like to bend their back too much, so I try to move my work around me to the best of my ability. So I'm standing relatively straight, and you can see I can get my face right in here. I sharpen closer to the tip of my bar just because of my setup here. So I try to make my work work for me more than me work for the work, if that makes any kind of sense whatsoever. It's just one of those deals. You got to figure out what works for you. Everybody has their obstacles, right? If that's how you choose to look at it. There's so many tools out there and so many resources. I encourage you to get on the Google machine, see what kind of magnification devices there are out there, see how you can move your work to better fit you rather than move yourself better to fit the work. Let's see if I can show you getting a cutter sharp. All right, forgive me if my beard gets in the way here, but we're going to give this a go. I'm going to see if I can sneak in here and get my face where I need it close enough to... All right, let's see how this goes. So what you need to be aware of sharpening a chain is your angle this way. You want to... Oh, and there's kind of a weird camera angle issue going on here. So you want to pay close attention to... I always find myself having a hard time making sure that I'm staying straight with this line, or at least making sure that I don't rock my file this direction. It's okay if I lift my file handle up or down. You'll notice the more tip, the more I drop my handle, the more this tip will be pointed up in the air, this direction. The more angle I have that way with this tip up, you can see that file is going to make more contact in my working corner. So what I may want to do is drop my file until I get my working corner established, lift the file of my handle, and finish up that top plate. Let's see if I can show you here. You'll see me feel with my thumb. What this allows me to do, sometimes it's hard for me to see how my angle is like this. When I put my thumb on it, I can feel, okay, yep, I know that my file is at a 90 degree to the bar, and that's kind of where I go for a reference. So you'll see me feel it. I do a lot more feeling than I do seeing when I file chain. Yeah, this isn't easy, but we're gonna go with it. We'll see what we can make happen here. Feel my angle out. I'm also gonna want to be looking too. Yeah, this vise setup, I need to get a more sturdy base. There we go. Now I'm gonna lift my handle up. I want to address the opposite side of my cutter, opposite of my working corner. I am not applying pressure on the backstroke, so I'm filing from left to right, pushing this direction. And I'm not liking the shape of my tooth right now. It is round, and that should be straight across the top plate. It's all right. We're going to keep playing with this till we get it right. Now we're starting to see some material getting pulled. You can see a burr starting to form on that top plate. I want to see that come across, all the way across my top plate, all the way to my working corner. And I'm moving my vise around. How are we doing on camera here? Yeah. All right. Keep poking away at this here. Yeah, we can see that working corner is still not anywhere near where we want it to be. You want that to be just absolutely razor sharp. And you can still see that working corner is not sharp yet. We still have some refining to do. See if I can get you guys in here. Uh-oh, my tripod's letting go. Yeah, I think that's still a little bit hard to see, but I think you guys can see it. Okay. Okay. That's starting to look a little bit better. I still don't like the shape of that top plate. It should be running straight across here. So I promise it doesn't ordinarily take me quite this long per tooth. Sometimes it does. Sometimes I really struggle with this. That's okay. It's just part of the deal. Okay, let me feel. That feels like a good angle for my file. So initially, earlier, when I started filming this, I was doing a whole bunch of yakking about what you want your chain to look like. and why counting your strokes or breaking out the micrometer, I think, doesn't make any sense. I'm going to save that for the end. I'm going to give you guys the action shots here, show you how I do it, and then we'll go back to why I file a chain the way that I do, and why how your cutter relates to your depth gauges or rakers, whatever you want to call it. Okay, it looks like I'm taking material all the way across the top of this too. So it looks like, and when I feel this, yes, it's important to make sure that your working corner, the very corner here, is razor sharp, but I want all the way across my top plate here. I want this entire leading edge, the entire thing needs to feel like my pocket knife all the way across. It needs to be sharp. I'll see if I can get some shots. You should be looking at it very closely, and all the way across it should be pulling skin, and I'm not feeling that just yet. So I'm going to take a couple more swipes across the top of this and see if we can dress that up some. And again, as I said before, I certainly don't try to come off as the expert. This is the beginning of my journey, and learning how to file is it is a journey, and you're going to go through chain. I guarantee it. I've gone through a lot. I've gone through a lot of really poor filing, and it looks like I've gotten my angle here just a little bit acute. It's a little bit too sharp in comparison with the line. I'm going to file a tooth off camera and then get some shots of what a tooth needs to look like. All right, this is the exact same tooth we were just working on. I really got to get my face in there. I did a better job of trying to meet my line here. And you can see very slightly I have done what I was talking about before. That tooth is just a little bit round. I want to see the leading edge of my cutter as straight as that line is right there. And we're not quite there. I actually see better looking through my camera than I do my magnifier. I'm going to see if there's a way that I can file while I'm actually looking through my phone. Let's see how that works. Yeah, see, like I said before, I don't come off as the expert because I'm not. I'm still learning. I'm learning right along with you guys. Let me see if I could file while looking through my phone. Okay, we'll give this a ripski here. I'm not applying a whole bunch of pressure. I'm just looking to clean this thing up right now. And I'm just applying pressure back towards the power head of the saw. No downward pressure, just straight on back. All right, I can see that I have that burr worked up all the way across. Not super excited about that working corner yet. We're gonna give her just a couple more strokes, clean my file out. Drop my handle just a little bit. Okay, so from this angle, it looks like I have worked the entire leading edge of my top plate here. So, real time, let's go ahead and take a look at that working corner. Let's look at it from a couple different angles, see how, check our work. All right. First thing I want to look at here. Okay, let's make sure we're on the same tooth to start with. All right. I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see this. I'm wanting to make sure that I got all the way up to that working corner, that I haven't left. That's the very first thing that's going to make contact with the wood. And it looks like I made my way out there pretty good. You can still see a little bit of that burr left. But it looks like I got that entire edge, this whole thing all the way across. You want to make sure you get it all. We'll go look at it from the other side, but while we're here, I want to look at my hook. How does my hook look? All right, if you've gone over to Buck and Billy Ray's channel, you're probably familiar with the saying, get the gullet. Well, I've got maybe just a little tiny bit of gullet left there, but I always try to be real cognizant of how much hook I have, which means if this part of my radius goes down, I'll get that gullet, but it means that it's going to increase my hook. I'm going to have more of an undercut from my top plate, which is right at the tip of my fingernail. If I bring my file down, it's going to have more hook, which means my working corner, which is at the very tip of my fingernail, is going to have less metal supporting it, and it's going to flake off, or it's going to peel back. It's not going to be as strong. This is how, in my experience with the dry hardwood that I cut, I don't want too much hook. I'm going to call this, I'm going to say this looks okay. And get some of that burr off there so you guys can see what that working corner looks like. Yeah. I think that's pretty good. Let's look at it from the other side. Okay, let's get in here. All right. That is by far the best angle you're going to get. And I'll tell you what, my hat's off to the guys who can do a really good job of filming filing. I'm finding that it's not easy at all. I'm just trying to remove some of the metal filings so we can really get a look at what our edge looks like. And it looks to me like I have touched the entire thing coming across here. I want to make sure that this entire edge has been cleaned up. Now, I guarantee you there are guys and gals out there who do a better job of this than I do. But you can see this is kind of interesting for me. It takes me a while not being able to see very good getting in here, but that's no excuse. You either got a sharp chain or a dull chain. So this is how I do it. This is just one cutter. I'll get back with you once we're done with the chain. All right, I want to show you what it looks like when you mess one up. I got a little bit too much gullet removal here. In my opinion, I have a little bit too much hook. All right, let me see if I can. So my circle, my half moon, whatever you want to call it, right, the very right corner of my thumbnail, I've got too much undercut. So my working corner, you can see here, maybe, this top plate, this metal right here, your leading edge, where your cut begins, that's going to be way too flimsy. So what I'm going to need to do is slightly lift up on my file, which normally you don't do when you're filing. I need to remove some metal on my working edge here and see if I can clean that up. All right, so I'll get back to you when I think it looks right. Okay, I like how this is looking better than it was before here. It's still a little bit hooky, but if I look at my working corner and where it comes down and meets the tie strap, it's pretty, it looks better than it did before. A little bit more metal behind my working corner here. I'm sorry for the camera work. I'm trying to show you guys the finer details here of what I'm looking at that I can't see. But that's looking better to me. So we'll carry on with life. I will find out if that's got too much hook, because when I get in the nasty cottonwood I'm going to get in tomorrow, if that's too much hook, it's going to peel it back right away. And then I will have no working corner on this tooth. All right, I'm going to give you guys maybe a different perspective here so you can kind of see what's happening to our top plate as I'm filing away here. You'll be able to see what this file is taking. And I think for this tooth, I'll take a couple swipes here. I don't think that I'm going to need to remove much from the gullet. I'm just going to apply pressure straight back towards the power head of the saw. If I notice that I'm removing material from my non-working corner part of the top plate, I'll lower my handle so that I am taking more material from my working corner side. And you're always kind of going back and forth with that, adjusting as you go, as you see material being pulled off. And I also will feel with my thumb. I can feel the angle of my file versus the angle of my top plate and where I think I want to be. And I'm not counting strokes. I don't ever count strokes. I'm really fortunate to have stumbled across Buck and Billy Ray's filing videos, and then subsequently come across Iron Horse. They both know how to file chain like there's no tomorrow. Probably because they've been doing it for just a wee tad shorter than I've been on this earth. So I suspect in that amount of time, a guy's going to pick up a thing or five. Yeah, I'd like to thank Buckin and Harvey for all their input. Buckin, for all your effort that you put into your filing videos. They've helped me tremendously. Harvey, thank you for spot checking me and making me aware of the fact that just because there's that line that Oregon puts across the top plate doesn't mean that's always where you have to sharpen to. If you're dealing with harder wood, you'll shrink that angle some, make it a little bit more acute. That way you've got a little bit more substantial metal there to deal with the hardcore wood you're working with. And Tin Man, thanks for humoring me when I'm blowing you up on the old WhatsApp. How's this look? How's that look? You guys have helped me so tremendously, it's not even funny. I'm going to say I'm really liking the way that looks, and I'm feeling with my thumb. I want to feel all the way across this top plate. It should be grabbing my skin. If I'm not careful, that should cut me. Oh, let's see here. The camera makes it look like we got a little work left on that working corner. Nope. I think that's just metal hanging out here. Yep, just a couple filings hanging. I think we're going to call that a sharp cutter. All right, I'm going to finish this chain with the cutters, and then we'll get on to probably what the most important part of this whole procedure is, and that is setting your raker height. Okay, why does filing your rakers matter? First of all, I want to give you perspective on how we're looking at the saw. We're looking at it right at the tip, head on. See, here we go. Okay, so it takes 2 cutters to make a chip, right? So right at the very tip of my file right here is your working corner. Look at what your raker does. Look at how it exposes a certain amount, and I have kind of a goofy angle on my phone right now, but you can see this only exposes a certain amount of your cutter. The more you file your raker down, the more of your cutter is exposed, and the harder it's going to bite the wood. So based on what kind of wood you're cutting is where you're going to set your raker height. I have a tendency to go towards the harder side of things because that's what we have here. Usually dry cottonwood that's plenty sandy. So I try not to take too much of a bite, even with a good ported saw. But since we're in this angle right here, I mean, picture this thing running, boom. Your raker makes contact, sets the depth of your cut, boom, one half of your chips carved out. Then, boom, your second raker is going to hit right here. Sets the depth for this cutter, boom, through the wood. You've now got a chip. Okay, this is what I use for a raker gauge. It's pretty simple. You'll probably notice right away what might be wrong with this one. First of all, let's go over how it's used. You should notice that there is a soft and a hard side. You'll notice you can still sort of read soft over here on this side. This side used to say hard. Evidently, this raker gauge is not hard. And you'll notice, for as much as I like to, as I feel my way through things, you can see that I have filed some off of this gauge here. You can see where I have removed metal. This needs to be of better quality, and in fact, I've got some more on the way. What I plan to do with this particular raker gauge, I'm going to get a new one. I'm going to put it in the forge or torch it, get it absolutely brilliantly red hot, and quench it in oil. That should harden it up to the point where the file should skate across it, in theory anyway. Like I was saying before, I like to use, for the type of wood that I'm cutting around here, I like to use the hard setting. So that's the side I'm going to use. You can see the reason that I am particular to this style, this plate style of raker gauge, the only tooth, so what this does, if my understanding is correct, when you put this raker gauge on, it's going to be resting on one cutter. You're only adjusting the importance of this is to adjust one raker per one cutter, because this cutter is the only cutter that this raker is going to regulate. Therefore, I only want to be referencing off of this cutter. Other raker gauges will have you sitting on two cutters. It'll either be these two, and then it'll leave kind of an open fork in the front for you to file. I don't like that. If there's a huge difference in the length of these two teeth, in my opinion, and this could be negligible, I don't know, seems to me you're not going to be accurate. I want to be referencing only off of one cutter. So that's the front portion of your raker gauge is sitting down on your tie straps. And the other part here is referenced off of your working corner, which is exactly where you want to be measuring your rakers from. So what I can do, what helps me to see how much, or if I need to take some off, I'm going to rub this across here. If it skates across, I know that that one's good. We'll move on to the next. Is that on there? Oh, we might have a couple strokes. So now, because I know my raker gauge is so soft, I really kind of have to pay attention. I'm not doing bull in the china shop. When I file across here, I want to make sure I'm not taking my file out, or my raker gauge out. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I can tell that one's, yep, sticky. Sticky. So We need to take some material off of there. So the reason that I don't break out the micrometer or count my strokes when I am filing my cutters. I have watched several filing videos by Buck and Billy Ray. I've mentioned him quite a bit in this video. What he does makes absolute sense to me. I've tried his method personally, and it works best for me. I have noticed that when I file each one of these rakers per tooth, I should be taking the exact same bite from this tooth to this tooth. When I have my rakers filed correctly, it takes 2 teeth to make a chip. If these are both taking the same bite, I'm gonna have an equal chip because of it. Now imagine if I don't use a gauge and I just willy-nilly go and file my rakers down. Well, what happens if I have 4 or 5 cutters on this side that are taking more of a bite because I have filed this raker down on 4 or 5 of those teeth? Or over the course of the chain, what if all the cutters, cumulatively have lower rakers, with my right facing cutter? Well, what that's going to mean is this chain is flying around when I have this saw ripping at friggin' 16 million RPM. Thanks, Tin Man. It's going to be taking more bites every time. It's going to be taking deeper bites with my right facing cutters, right? So if I have my rakers trimmed down accordingly, tooth by tooth, every single tooth is going to be taking the same bite. Now, as long as I don't have other circumstances, like if my bar happens to be worn out, is another reason that I could see your cut is going to cup. I've seen people get upset because as they're cutting through the wood, they notice their bar is doing this number. It tends to cup through the cut, especially in bigger wood. If your bar is in good shape, it's because your rakers aren't addressed correctly, if my understanding is correct. If your rakers are adjusted correctly, I would take a look at your bar. I would make sure, and again, Buckin's got some really good videos on this, and I'm just sharing my experience with you. I haven't worn a bar out yet enough to the point where I have to dress it, so we're not there yet. I know for sure this bar's in good enough shape. I file my rakers, we're golden. So next step, I'm going to get all these filed to where I think they're correct. And the only way we're going to know if this cuts or not, or how it cuts, is taking the wood. All right, so we got a couple things that we're going to try out. First of all, we're going to see how this chain we just filed up cuts. And last time I talked to Tin Man, he said this saw's got more to give. So I'm curious about that. We're going to give that a rip too. In other words, I'm running her a little bit on the rich side, which I kind of intended to do just for the sake of not blowing up a sweet saw that I was just given. But we're going to lean her out a little bit and see what we get out of her. We'll start with an honest to God cold start. Oh, dude. You can't complain about that. Alright guys, well, if there's one thing that I hope you got out of the video today, it certainly is not that I'm an expert at filing. I got a long ways to go in the journey. I've picked up some real gems along the way. Thanks to Buck and Billy Ray, Harvey over, he's the Iron Horse, and the Tin Man. I appreciate all those guys, all their help. The biggest thing I wanted you to get out of the video today is that whatever obstacle you've got, don't let it be an obstacle. When I was born with this laundry list of eye issues that I have, I was never supposed to be able to tell the difference between night and day. So with that said, obviously we found out that I'm doing a little bit better than that. So it can be challenging at times, dealing with little tiny pieces and parts, trying to get those cutters shaped just right. It can be a challenge, but I can do it. If I can do it, you can. There's always ways around it. If anything, I hope that this would inspire somebody who might be kind of spectating, watching this stuff, might be kind of on the fence about it. Just do it. Get out and do it. Do it, mess it up, do it again, mess it up again. Eventually you're going to find out what works for you. Biggest thing is just get up and do. Get into this stuff. I don't have much of a mechanical background. I started working on these saws. I've rebuilt a couple of them. I'm about ready to get into porting. According to a lot of people, I'm not supposed to do that, right? Well, guess what? I'll figure it out one way or the other. You can too. Get after it. Have fun. Thanks for watching.